Because it was her first time, my wife Samantha spoke so softly I could barely hear her. Her face turned a deep red, and seeing her so bashful took me by surprise. I found myself completely captivated by her. But our relationship wasn't always like this. My name is Jack Andrews. I'm just an ordinary guy working for a medical device company. I once had a dream and went for it, but I didn't have the talent, so I gave up. My parents had high hopes for me and encouraged me to pursue my own path, which led me here. Now I have no dreams and no ambitions. Losing my dreams left me feeling empty, without a goal. People might say to get married and start a family, but I'm still a bachelor with no girlfriend. It honestly pains me that I can't give my mother the grandchildren she longs for. I just can't give them what I don't have. Next week I need to visit my parents. They live in the same state, just a short train ride away, so it's no big deal. But when they called, their voices were serious, saying they had important matters to discuss. My parents are usually laid back and rarely ask me to come home, so something must have happened. I want to be a good son, so I'll accept whatever favor they ask. The day came and I returned to my childhood home. My parents run a diner with the shop on the first floor and their home on the second. As a child, I used to boast I'd take over the shop, but I lacked the talent for cooking and gave up on that path. That's why I'm hesitant to return home. But it's strange. They should be open every day except Thursday, and the shop sign isn't out. Are they closed just for today? I'm home, Dad. Mom, I'm back. Opening the door to the diner, I found both Mom and Dad there. They looked thin and pale. What happened to you two? I asked, hastily approaching them. They explained the situation with heads bowed. A family restaurant opened nearby, and our diner started losing customers. They tried their best to bounce back, but the customers only dwindled. Dad investigated the sudden drop in customers and found anonymous rumors about our diner being dirty or having cockroaches. Despite their efforts, business sales continued to decline, and they ended up in debt, making it impossible to keep the diner open. Even if they close the diner, the debt remains. Worst case, they might have to sell our home. We're sorry if you lose your home too, Dad said, tears of frustration in his eyes. His voice was shaking, and I had never seen him like this. Can't something be done, at least about the debt? I asked. The debt is $80,000. We're looking for a place to get a loan, Dad replied, hanging his head. He must have done all he could, but without any solutions, he confessed to me. In desperation, I turned my gaze to Mom. Mom, can't you ask for help from your friends? Well, I did talk to them. Actually, one of my friends mentioned she might be able to help, but there is a condition. I leaned in, eager to hear more. Regardless of what the condition was, it was worth listening if help was on the table. Yet Mom kept her head down, hesitant to elaborate. Encouraged by Dad, Mom finally broke her silence. The condition is she proposed marriage to her daughter. What? You know I used to go to the flower arrangement class, right? That's where I met her. Her husband is a CEO of a leading company, and their daughter apparently doesn't have anyone she's seeing. According to Mom, this daughter Samantha is shy and hasn't been able to find a partner, even though she wants to get married. This friend of mine seems to be very family-oriented and said she would be willing to help us out if I marry Samantha and become part of their family. But Jack has the right to choose his own partner. I don't want to deprive you of your future because of our debts. No, I'll take the deal. I told my decision to my worried mother. I couldn't take over the family business. I couldn't protect this place that had always been precious to me since I was born. So if getting married is what it takes to save the business, I'll do it. And after all, she's a CEO's daughter. It's a rare opportunity for an ordinary guy like me to have a connection with someone like that. There was a part of me that thought it was a lucky break, the chance to help the business and maybe gain a partner and some connections. There weren't many downsides for me, so I decided to go ahead with it. But I see why she's not finding a husband. The day I met with Samantha, that was the thought running through my mind. She must be shy indeed. Her gaze occasionally wandered away, like she couldn't look directly at me. On the other hand, I couldn't take my eyes off of Samantha. Well, to be more accurate, off her figure. Her double chin was so prominent that it looked like she didn't have a neck. And not just her neck, she didn't have a waistline. Typically, even average-sized women have some curves, but Samantha had none. If I were to compare her shape to something, it would be to a certain blue feline-shaped robot from the future. I don't like to criticize people's appearances, but I have to admit she had a strong impact. If you ask me if I wanted to marry her, I'd say no without hesitation. But I am not in the position to say that right now. Nice to meet you. I'm Samantha. I'm Jack. Pleasure to meet you. Samantha shyly responded and made her greeting. I also nodded in response, and after discussing, we officially became engaged. A month later, we got married and officially became a couple. There was some discussion about living together, but marriage was a non-negotiable condition for repaying the debt. I had no reason to refuse. Perhaps understanding the situation, Samantha suggested that we don't force ourselves to live like a typical married couple, but come together in our own way. So we ended up sharing a bedroom, but not a bed. The so-called wedding night has not yet taken place. Well, with Samantha's physique, sharing a bed would honestly be a squeeze. We were both used to living alone, so it was a bit awkward at first, but it seems that Samantha had always aspired to be a typical wife. Good morning. I tried making breakfast. If you like, please. Just before I left for work, Samantha, who had gotten up early, had prepared breakfast. Chicken soup, fish and omelet. It was a hearty meal. The aroma of the food tickled my nostrils, stimulating my empty stomach. This is delicious. Even though I quit, I once aspired to be a chef. I have a discerning palate for food, so I can say with confidence Samantha's soup is truly delicious. And it's not just the soup. The seasoning of the fish is just right. And the omelet, its color, shape, and taste are all perfect. The quality is as good as any restaurant. This is amazing. It must have been tough to make breakfast of this level, right? It's delicious. I was so engrossed in my breakfast, Samantha's face gradually turned red. I'm glad. Be confident. I'm a diner's owner's son, after all. Samantha, you're a great cook. With that, I finished my meal, not hiding my genuine opinion. Samantha shyly hid her face behind the tray she was holding. Well, I've never served my homemade food to anyone before. I'm happy, though. She appeared extremely shy, but seeing Samantha genuinely happy was adorable. They say don't judge a book by its cover, and that might be true. Samantha, aside from her looks, has a very playful and adorable personality. She's so domestic that you'd forget she's a CEO's daughter, and she almost flawlessly manages household chores, except it seems like she's not very good at doing laundry. The other day, she ended up turning all my shirts blue. She seems to still be getting used to sorting by colors. I'm sorry. They've turned completely blue, haven't they? I've made that mistake before, too. A mistake that would depress me if I had made it somehow becomes forgivable when Samantha does it. I slowly fell in love with Samantha. At first, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but by the time we had been living together for 6 months, what am I going to do? The doctor said I might not be able to have a baby. One day, Samantha came home crying. Apparently, something had come up during her health checkup. I can guess why. I don't necessarily expect us to have children, so don't cry so much. But with my current figure, you won't be able to hold me, Jack. I choked up emotionally. I am perfectly able to love Samantha, but it's pretty tough with her 200 pounds figure. While I was struggling for words, Samantha seemed to make up her mind, looking at me determinedly. I've decided. I'm going on a diet. I want to live a long life, and I want children. Also, I want to walk proudly by your side, Jack. I can't stop Samantha, who says this while blushing. Samantha made up her mind, and thus she began her diet. Exercise is good for health, so I also joined her in the effort. I was just starting to worry about my waistline. I suppose I've put on some happy weight. It can't be helped. Samantha's cooking is too delicious. We go jogging together before work and walking every night. But as expected, it's not easy to keep up. I can't do it anymore. I won't spoil Samantha when she whines like that. This was a promise between me and Samantha. If she felt like giving up, I would be there to support her. So when Samantha looked ready to give up, I proposed something. Hey, Samantha, I have a suggestion. What is it? How about we buy a dress? Here's my idea. I will buy the dress that Samantha wants to wear the most right now, and Samantha will work hard on her diet so that she can wear that dress. It's easier for people to have a goal in front of them. That might be a great idea. I've never worn a dress before. Samantha was on board with the idea. Additionally, we decided to separate our bedrooms. This was because Samantha wanted to do stretches and yoga at night. "If I'm being watched, it's embarrassing," she said. "If she makes a request like that, when do you want to fulfill it?" And so, Samantha continued to put forth great effort. Half a year later, by the time we were married for a year, Samantha had become astonishingly beautiful. I hadn't realized it because she was overweight, but she originally had a good figure. With her chest and butt standing out and her waist slimmed down, Samantha, now with a great figure, looked like a different person. Her weight dropped to the goal weight of 117 pounds, and Samantha came running to me beaming with joy. "Jack, I'm going to try on that dress today." "Really? I'm going to change in the bedroom. Wait for me here." With that, Samantha headed to her bedroom. The bedroom, come to think of it, for the past year, we haven't slept in the same bed, had we? With the way Samantha is now, we could probably share a bed. In fact, isn't this the first time I've been allowed into her bedroom since she lost weight? Thinking like that, it felt almost like our wedding night. After all, Samantha had always strictly kept me out of her bedroom. "It's your first time in my room, isn't it?" "Ha ha ha ha. I'm looking forward to our first night." My heart skipped a beat, wondering for a moment if I'd accidentally voiced my thoughts. As if she had read my mind, Samantha laughed. "I'll be changed," and shut the bedroom door. After a year together, we were comfortable enough to joke around like that, but her shyness hasn't changed. Just before she shut the door, I caught a glimpse of her blushing ears. After a little while, I put it on and came in. Upon Samantha's invitation, I entered the bedroom. "This is my first time wearing a dress. How do I look?" There stood Samantha, blushing yet gracefully wearing the red dress I'd bought. She looked stunning, her beauty resembling that of a goddess. I was left dumbstruck. "This is incredible. You look stunning," were the only commonplace words I could muster up. Samantha was that beautiful. She was enchanting and alluring, yet despite her appeal, she was blushing and fidgeting adorably. "Do I look weird?" "Not at all. You're beyond beautiful." "Really? Truly?" "Yeah, I'd rather not have you walk around outside like that, though." Upon hearing that, Samantha chuckled happily. "Oh, stop it, but I'm flattered. I'm just telling the truth. I mean, what if some strange guy comes over?" I muttered, a hint of anxiety in my voice. Samantha, in all her beauty, smiled. "In that case, you'll protect me, won't you?" Her blush was so very Samantha-like, and I chuckled in response. I resolved in my heart to protect Samantha at all costs and gently closed the bedroom door. From then on, time continued to pass. Believe it or not, I took over my dad's restaurant. Quitting my job and paying off the debt was one thing, but it was no easy task to bring a reputation-damaged restaurant back to life. But now we've transformed into a popular restaurant with lines from the morning. "Jack, take this to table 5. "Got it." "Samantha, how's the meal for table 8? "It's almost ready." Yes, it's Samantha in the kitchen now. When I explained the situation of the restaurant, Samantha said she wanted someone to try her cooking, given the lack of popularity. "Jack, you praise my cooking, right?" That gave me confidence. To be honest, I was convinced that if Samantha cooked for the restaurant, it would surely succeed. That's how much I trust Samantha's cooking skills. She's always loved cooking. She even admitted to gaining weight from eating too much of her own cooking. That's actually an ideal skill for running a diner. Even though the customer traffic had dwindled, it wasn't zero. I pleaded with our regulars to try Samantha's cooking. Her culinary skills were soon recognized, and customers started to return. In fact, some people even come in daily to eat. I help out in the kitchen, but primarily I handle the management and front of house work, creating a place where Samantha can fully utilize her talents. That's my job. I'm home. The restaurant door creaked open around the evening. It was still early for dinner, so there weren't many customers. Into this quiet scene entered a boy carrying a backpack. "Welcome back, Jake." "Dad, I'm hungry. Ask your mom to make something." "Yes." The elementary school boy who just walked in is Jake, me and Samantha's son. Actually, after Samantha's successful diet, she got pregnant and gave birth to a healthy baby boy. "Mom, can you make something?" "Oh, you really ate a lot, don't you? Just wait a bit." Our son, nagging for food because he's hungry, calls out to the kitchen. Watching the scene, I can't help but smile. Right now, I'm happy. I have my loving wife, my adorable son, and I get to live with them both in the restaurant. I've always wanted to protect Samantha, and it's crude to say, but we married because of the debt. It's probably not what you call a good match, but I can say this from the bottom of my heart. I'm glad I married you. How did you find that? Your subscription to the channel really motivates us to keep producing. See you in the next video.
I went up to the attractive woman I always saw on the train, who was holding a white cane. She tensed, then turned her face to me as I plucked up the strength to speak to her. I never would have predicted the startling response that came out of her mouth. The man who was bothering her turned out to be the same one who was causing me a lot of problems at work. I happened to be there when it happened. I'm generally hesitant and lack confidence, but I felt I couldn't just watch. I plucked up the strength to tell her I was sorry. She must be blind or visually challenged because she is holding a white cane. How could you possibly harm someone in that way? You raised your hand against her, and I saw it. I'm 41 years old, and my name is Benjamin. My employer, Foster Foods, runs well-known cafes around the nation, including Roasting Village and Foster Beans. Fortunately, I was recently acknowledged for my efforts and given the position of leader of the new product development team for the next year. I shouldn't feel this way at my age, but I'm not the most self-assured person. Even though I've known for some time that I need to change, this new opportunity made me think, this is my chance to really turn things around. I'm not very close to my coworkers at the moment. I thought I'd start by strengthening the bonds within our product development team and getting to know my teammates better, because I always feel a little out of place and reluctant to join the group. Is it just me, or does the fact that I'm still unmarried make me feel excluded? No, I don't believe it to be true. I had someone once too. Sarah, who was 3 years older than me, was the woman I vowed to marry. She would claim that, like a loyal future wife, I would bring out her nurturing side and force her into my life. I was in my 20s at the time, and I wasn't too bothered. One day, she abruptly requested to end the relationship. You simply aren't trustworthy enough. I don't sense any genuine affection from you, and you're constantly passive. I became concerned about getting married to you. I was astonished by what she said. I had assumed that we would get married without any issues, but she abruptly changed her mind. Sarah became even more dissatisfied upon witnessing my clumsy response and departed. I've struggled ever since to get over my uneasiness around ladies, or actually humans in general. The department's employees frequently go out to eat or drink together after work, but I always go straight home alone. I return to my apartment after an hour-long train ride. It's the only spot where I can really unwind. I am one of 5 people on our new product development team. Our department leader, Henry, requested that we concentrate on creating new desserts and pleasant cold beverages as summer draws near. I want to live up to Henry's expectations as the selected team leader. I was prepared to put my all into it, but nearly at once, something went wrong. Benjamin's desperation is excessive. It's really awkward. Kevin, a member of my team, is open about his distaste for me. Even though he's always making fun of me, I want to cooperate with everyone now that I'm in charge. I ignored his remark and addressed the gathering. Let's work hard on this new product development. The group looked at one another with a knowing look. I ended up bending my head a little because I felt uncomfortable. Oh, I see. Anticipating it. They all started laughing at my contrite manner. Friendly laughter didn't feel like it. They seemed to be laughing at me more than anything else. My aims were becoming more and more misguided. This is not good. A leader such as he. Kevin mumbled, "No thanks," so I could hear him. I was embarrassed that I was unable to come up with a response to his hurtful remarks. He then began to absolutely shun me. Even when I welcomed him, he blatantly displayed his animosity and disregarded me. Finally, the day came for our team's first presentation. I'll be in the meeting room on the 3rd floor, so please gather there. I called out and headed there ahead of everyone. I wondered what ideas everyone would bring. Excited, I set up the tea in the meeting room and waited. But even after 15 minutes, no one showed up. Thinking something might have happened, I went to check, only to find the four of them still seated at their desks, chatting away. At first, I thought they were just enjoying themselves until I realized it was a session of badmouthing me. Man, making us all gather in the meeting room. What a drag. The others chuckled. I felt a pang of quiet hurt. Benjamin's usually so dull and gloomy, and now he's suddenly all gung-ho. It's exhausting just watching him. Remarks like that started coming up too. Is that really how they see me? The pain made me quietly withdraw. Since that day, I've been losing sleep, constantly thinking about how I can get along with everyone. One day after work, I decided to take the plunge. If you're free, would you like to grab a drink? I'd love to get to know everyone better, I suggested, proposing a social outing. Everyone looked at me. Maybe this could work. There's a new place nearby that serves great seafood. How about we go there, have some good food, and have an open chat? That's what we call drinking harassment, Kevin responded with a cold stare. I tried to explain that wasn't my intent, but he wouldn't listen. Oh well, we don't have to drink. Just enjoying a good meal together is fine too, right? Silence filled the air. No one agreed. Feeling defeated, I grabbed my bag. Well, I'll think of another idea sometime. I bowed my head and left the office, sighing at how poorly things were going. Then, on the train ride home, I stumbled upon something shocking. A message notification popped up on my free chat app, so I opened it casually. It was from one of the team members. Having a great time with the team, read the message with a photo of everyone. But me, looking happy together. A classic wrong recipient message. The place was, of all places, that seafood restaurant I had suggested. So, they really do dislike me. I slumped in disappointment. The shock was too much. The next day, I stopped Kevin to try and talk. Predictably, he ignored me, so I turned to Kimberly, the member who had accidentally sent the message. Look, I know it's awkward to ask, but I can't figure out why everyone seems to hate me. If there's something I can fix, I'd really like to know. Could you tell me? Maybe she felt sorry seeing how desperate I was, so Kimberly spoke in a low voice. Her tone made it clear she was angry. I think Kevin has every right to be upset. It's because of things like that you lose everyone's trust. I had no idea what she meant, so I just stared blankly at her. Benjamin, you're seducing girls in their 20s, aren't you? I mean, you pretend to be all quiet, but there's talk that you're actually a pretty shady guy. What girls in their 20s? Me? No way. I'd never do something like that. It seemed like there was a huge misunderstanding. I desperately tried to explain that they had the wrong person, but no one believed me. After all, Kevin was confidently claiming he had evidence, so no one would even listen to my side. Evidence? What could he possibly have? At least now, I understood why people looked at me like I was some kind of creep, but I had no idea how to clear this up. I was at a loss. After gathering some information, I discovered the truth. Kevin has a much younger sister. Her boyfriend has the same name as me and lives in the same area. In other words, Kevin mistakenly believes his sister is dating me. I sighed deeply. His sister is still in her 20s, and if he thinks his sister's boyfriend is an unimpressive guy in his 40s like me, it's no wonder Kevin is upset. Apparently, he's strongly opposed to the relationship, but I have nothing to do with it. This is all just a misunderstanding. In fact, it's a nuisance. I need to explain this clearly. I set out to find Kevin and clear up the misunderstanding. Determined, I looked around the office for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Apparently, he was off stirring up more trouble. He had gone directly to Henry to make his case. I think Kimberly would be a better fit for team leader than Benjamin. She's popular with the team, and remember her coffee jelly creation that became such a hit. Compared to her, Benjamin has no track record and zero support. Henry looked troubled by what Kevin said. He replied that he'd think it over and urged Kevin to return to the office later. Henry called me in. You have to get the team together. I promoted you because I thought you could handle it. Don't let me down. Feeling defeated, I took the train home with a heavy heart. Then I remembered it was Tuesday. Lately, there was something I looked forward to every Tuesday and Friday. A beautiful, fair-skinned woman with a white cane boards the same train car as me. For some reason, when there's an open seat, she always ends up sitting beside me. I don't know why she chooses to sit next to me each time, but really, any reason is fine. It simply makes me happy. She's like a breath of fresh air in my difficult daily life. I found myself wondering if I'd see her again today. Even though it's only 2 stops, just seeing her on those Tuesdays and Fridays lightens my mood a bit. The day of the second new product presentation arrived. I worried that no one would show up again, like last time, but this time Henry would be there, so at least they wouldn't boycott my idea. For a new iced coffee with mint chocolate flavoring, the reaction was ruthless. This is the worst thing I've ever tasted, and it's so off-putting. There's no way this will sell. The criticism was brutal. I chuckled bitterly at their harshness. Instead, Kevin's iced coffee paired with sweet bean jelly was praised as a masterpiece. The bitterness of the coffee and the cold, refreshing taste goes perfectly with the sweet red bean paste. This will be a hit for sure. Everyone echoed that sentiment. Henry looked at me with a disappointed expression. Then Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, presented her new dessert idea, an almond jelly parfait. This one also received high praise. After the presentation, Henry muttered, "Maybe I need to reconsider a few things." I felt completely sidelined. I regretted not being able to meet Henry's expectations. Would Kimberly end up taking over as the team leader after all? Maybe it would be better if I just stepped aside. On the train ride home, I was lost in thought when the woman with the white cane boarded. She sat down beside me, just like always. For some reason, I suddenly felt like talking to her, so I gathered my courage and spoke up. "You always sit next to me, don't you?" She flinched in surprise. "Can you actually see?" She tensed up, then turned her face toward me. To my shock, she responded with something I hadn't anticipated. "What do you mean by that? Are you suggesting I'm just pretending to have a disability?" She was visibly getting angrier. "Oh no, that wasn't my intention at all." I quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way." "But don't you realize how offensive that question was?" "You're absolutely right. That was thoughtless of me." Our exchange had drawn attention on the train. I decided to get off at her usual stop to continue apologizing. "There are people watching here, so I'll get off at the next stop. Please let me keep apologizing, if you don't mind. It's your usual stop after all." She gave a silent nod. Once we were on the platform, I launched into a desperate explanation. "Really, it wasn't that I doubted you or anything. It's just that you always sit next to me, and I couldn't help but wonder why. But I see now that I made you uncomfortable, and I'm truly sorry." I gathered every possible word of apology and kept apologizing to her. Gradually, her demeanor began to soften. "I understand. I overreacted too. I got a bit heated." Relieved, I exhaled deeply. "I'm Ashley," she introduced herself. I went ahead and gave my name as well. "I'm Benjamin." Her eyebrows raised slightly. "Oh, is something wrong?" "No," Ashley smiled. "Your question about why I always sit next to you, it's because of the scent." Surprised, I instinctively lifted my arm and took a sniff. I ended up making a loud sniffing sound, so she probably realized what I was doing. Ashley laughed softly. "It's not a bad smell. It's the sea aroma. I love coffee, and every time I sit next to you, there's this wonderful scent. I sighed in relief. I work for a company that operates coffee chains, actually. Places like Roasting Village and Foster's Beans. Oh, there's a Foster's Beans near my place. I'm quite the regular there. The tension in the air eased. Ah, thank goodness, I thought. That was the reason, and my question was answered. I was genuinely happy to talk to Ashley. I felt a bit giddy, but unfortunately, Kevin happened to witness this scene. Since he thought I was dating his sister, he flew into a rage. "Benjamin, you scumbag. I told you to stay away from my sister." He suddenly lunged at me, yelling. His loud outburst startled Ashley beside me, causing her to stumble. In his agitation, Kevin didn't even notice her white cane. He ended up bumping into her. Ashley fell to her hands on the floor, angry that she hadn't moved out of his way. Kevin started hurling insults at her. "What the hell are you doing?" I put a hand on Ashley's shoulder as she crouched on the floor. "Are you okay?" She sighed, relieved. "Yes." She looked pale. She must have been terrified. I glared at Kevin. That was uncalled for. Only then did Kevin notice her white cane. "Oh, so she's blind. Move out of the way. You should be taking the train when it's not crowded." I angrily rebuked him. "How can you say something like that?" "What was that?" We glared at each other. I had reached my limit. I didn't care if this got me removed from the team leader position or kicked off the team. This time, I was determined to say everything I had kept bottled up. I was furious that Kevin had insulted Ashley, who had nothing to do with this. Apologized to her. She's holding a white cane, meaning she has a visual impairment. How could you bring yourself to hurt someone like that? Oh, shut up. You pretend to be a feminist when it suits you, but you're just a sleazeball hitting on women. Don't you dare mess with my sister. I've tried to tell you many times that it's a misunderstanding. Why won't you listen? Kevin looked shocked that I was responding so directly. You're acting totally different. Usually, you're such a wimp, never saying a thing. I didn't think you could talk back like this. You're just trying to impress her because she's pretty, right? He shot a smug look at Ashley. I firmly told him that this was an entirely separate matter. It was true I had noticed her before, but now was not the time to be talking about that. You're mistaken, Kevin. I'm not the one dating your sister. I have proof. You said your birthday was on the weekend, didn't you? My sister also mentions celebrating her boyfriend's birthday on that same day. I hesitated, lost for words. With the same name, living in the same area, and sharing the same birthday, I could see how it all seemed like an unbelievable coincidence, even to me. Kevin scoffed. See? You can't even deny it, and now you're trying to go after this woman too. You just see my sister as an obstacle, don't you? Unforgivable. I don't know about the birthday, but I'm telling you there's nothing between me and your sister, or between me and Ashley. I don't trust you. Break up with my sister. I suddenly realized that everyone on the platform was watching us, and someone even asked, "Shall we call the station staff?" It was only natural that everyone was watching, given how loud the commotion had become. I felt my face flush. Just then, Ashley, who had been silent up until now, suddenly spoke up. That voice. I've heard it before. You're the brother or friend of mine, aren't you? Kevin looked bewildered as she addressed him. My name is Ashley. My friend's name is Natalie. You're her brother, right? She had perfectly guessed Kevin's sister's name. His eyes widened in surprise. Yes, my sister's name is Natalie, but Kevin looked skeptical, tilting his head. Prove that you're actually her friend. Ashley gave a slight smile. Natalie talks like this, doesn't she? She began mimicking her. I couldn't tell, but it must have been a spot-on impression. Kevin looked astonished. She has this slightly babyish, nasal way of talking. It's a unique voice, hard to mimic, but you really got it right. I remember because I hear it all the time. Ashley looked a bit proud of herself. Then she added, I even have a photo. She showed her phone. It was a picture of her and Kevin's sister standing side by side. That's Natalie, I said. I see. But what kind of friend are you to her? All her friends are usually young and flashy. Kevin, arms crossed, asked her a question. Ashley was clearly older than his sister. In fact, she looked about the same age as Kevin himself. I met Natalie at an English conversation class. Although I can't see, I have an active personality and love trying new things. That's right. My sister loves traveling abroad, so she takes English classes. Kevin murmured. Now he understood that Ashley was indeed a friend of his sister's. But he was still puzzled as to how Ashley had recognized his voice. Ashley, where did you hear my voice, and how do you remember it? Do you really want to know? You're making this sound like an interrogation. Ashley grew exasperated with Kevin's persistence. Still, she kindly explained. Kevin's sister knows that Ashley has an exceptional sense of hearing, so when they communicate, she often uses various audio recordings. For example, she plays her own videos, like one from a beach trip. Ashley can hear the sound of waves, the ocean breeze, people's voices, and even the voices of her family members. Ashley gets to listen to these sounds firsthand, and then Kevin's sister adds explanations to help her understand. Natalie is very kind. She introduces me to so many new things. Apparently, some of those videos included her brother Kevin's voice. At this point, Kevin finally apologized to Ashley. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were my sister's friend. That was rude of me, but I'm not apologizing to Benjamin. Kevin remained firm. This guy's been leading my sister on. That's absolutely not true, I insisted firmly. Kevin turned to Ashley. Ashley, have you ever heard anything about Natalie's boyfriend? Isn't it this guy? He asked, pointing at me. This guy is way too old to be messing around with a girl in her 20s. There's something really off about him, and he's my senior at work, a guy with no ambition and nothing respectable about him. Of course, as her brother, I'd be completely against it, Kevin declared. Ashley chuckled softly. What's so funny? Kevin asked. He's not Natalie's boyfriend, Ashley explained. I felt an immense wave of relief, unable to keep a smile from my face. But Kevin's frustration only grew. What? How would you know that? Kevin asked. The scent is different. The scent again. I was amazed by Ashley's incredible sense of smell. Wait, Ashley, have you actually met Natalie's boyfriend? Kevin asked, leaning in with interest. No, I haven't met him, she explained. But I know because I've met Natalie after their dates, and she had a lovely scent on her. My heart skipped a beat. A lovely scent? What could that mean? It was unmistakably the smell of shampoo or hair products. I'm sure her boyfriend is a hairstylist. But right now, both Benjamin and Kevin smell like coffee. Kevin was taken aback. Amazing. I find the smell of coffee comforting, so that's why I always sit next to Benjamin. He's been wondering why, but I knew from the start that he worked at a coffee chain. So, I can say with confidence that this is a case of mistaken identity encouraged by Ashley's reliable testimony. I felt a surge of courage having witnessed Ashley's incredible abilities. Kevin was momentarily speechless. Plus, Natalie often confides in me about her struggles with you, Ashley continued. She's been worried, saying that recently, you two have been fighting a lot. She's concerned because you two were once so close. She wonders if it's her fault for causing you trouble. What Natalie said caused Kevin and me to both feel a pang of emotion at her words. Hey, Ashley, sorry for the wait. To our surprise, it was none other than Kevin's sister, Natalie, who appeared. Huh? What are you doing here, big brother? Kevin stammered. Well, what's going on? Ashley smiled. It turned out she had planned to meet Kevin's sister today. What a coincidence. Kevin was flustered and at a loss for words. Meanwhile, his sister casually dropped a surprising revelation. Yeah, dating an older guy just didn't work for me. We broke up. What? With Benjamin here? Kevin pointed at me. This time, it was Natalie's turn to look surprised. Ha, who's this? I've never seen him before. See, right? I said. Natalie, we're complete strangers, aren't we? Yeah, pretty much, she replied casually. Kevin turned beet red and bowed deeply to me. I'm so sorry. Hearing the whole story, Natalie also apologized for the trouble her brother's misunderstanding had caused me. What were you even thinking, big brother? My bad. My ex's name is Benjamin, yes, but that's just the name he uses for work. His real name is different. It's a trend among star hairstylists to use alternate names. I glanced at Ashley. Her face lit up as she spoke, so Natalie's ex really was a hairstylist. Sorry, Ashley. I hadn't mentioned it, but it doesn't matter now. We broke up anyway. Big brother, Kevin said, seeing the stern look on his sister's face. Begging you to take out your frustrations on others because of me? That's the worst. I'm disappointed in you. But birthdays and everything. It was such a rare coincidence. I really thought it was Benjamin, so persistent. I couldn't have celebrated with him on his actual birthday. He has weekdays off, remember? Oh, right. When it came to his sister, Kevin seemed to lose all common sense. I was just worried. Don't talk to me anymore, she snapped. Kevin, elbowed aside by his sister, looked utterly dejected. Ashley and I watched, unable to hold back our laughter. Kevin looked completely defeated after being cut off by his sister. Then a shocking revelation surfaced within the new product development team. The iced coffee with sweet bean jelly that Kevin had presented turned out to be a copy of a competitor's product. Henry was furious and removed Kevin from the team. Rumor had it he'd be transferred to a subsidiary in the next round of reassignments. Kevin lost his confidence and became a completely different, much gloomier person. Once the center of attention, he now spent his time in a corner of the office, with copier or maintenance as his only real task. As for my new creation, the mint chocolate-flavored iced coffee, since that incident, Ashley and I had grown closer, and she helped me come up with an improved version. We added a scoop of mint chocolate ice cream to the iced coffee. Through trial and error, adjusting the blend and roast of the coffee beans, we arrived at a fresh new taste. With Ashley's encouragement, I finally worked up the courage to present it. Wow, this is actually really good. Even Kimberly, the team's hitmaker, gave it her stamp of approval. Henry complimented me with a nod, saying, "Well done." The new drink was soon approved to be launched as a product at Foster Beans. When I shared the news with Ashley, she was thrilled for me. Though it had been a bumpy road, the misunderstandings with my team were finally cleared up, and we were working together in a positive atmosphere. And now, my goal is to create a coffee that someday Ashley herself might call her favorite.
I grew up in a quite normal household, living with my parents in a small but cozy house on the outskirts of town. While my dad worked late shifts at the plant, my mom worked as a cashier at the local grocery store. Despite the shortage of funds, we managed to make ends meet. Given that I was their only kid, they showered me with affection, even if I wasn't the easiest to raise. I was the sick one from a young age, with colds that seemed to last for weeks, and a variety of allergies that kept me at home more frequently than out. Let's just say that fashion was the least of our concerns, along with the fact that I was quite thin for my age. School served as a battlefield. I tried my hardest to fit in, but I always stuck out, and not in a good way. A student named Sarah made sure of it. Sarah was everything I wasn't: popular, gorgeous, and constantly looking like she was ready to walk into a photo shoot. I once tried to evade the bullies by arriving late to class. Slipping into my chair, I hoped for a peaceful day. That hope vanished the moment Sarah saw me. Look who decided to show up, Sarah exclaimed, loud enough for the whole class to hear. Thought you were too sick to come to school, or did you finally find something to wear that didn't come from a charity bin? Her friends laughed as they imitated her rudeness. If I wanted to disappear, I had nowhere to go. But I said nothing, just leave me alone, Sarah. What was that? She said mockingly as she took a step closer. You are not audible to me. Speak up. Before I could think of a response, our math teacher, Mr. Jenkins, entered, interrupting Sarah's next move. For the rest of the day, I kept quiet and only spoke when someone spoke to me. Even then, my voice was barely audible. At home, things were different. It was my haven. During dinner, my parents exchanged nervous glances when they noticed my dejected expression. Nellie, honey, you hardly touched your meal. At school today, something happened. With a troubled tone, my mother asked. I shrugged and moved my food around on my plate. It doesn't matter. I guess it's simply exhaustion. My father, who has yet to speak, put down his fork. Nellie, you may talk to us. No matter what, we are here to assist. I nodded, realizing that they meant every word, but the humiliation of the day was beyond words. Thank you, Dad. I'm just tired. I think I'm going to bed early. I dragged my feet toward the school gates the next day, bracing myself for another day of dodging glares and hushed remarks. My backpack felt heavy with textbooks and the heavy burden of worry of facing Sarah and her company. As I moved through the crowded hallways, trying to fit in, I heard the all-too-familiar voice that made my stomach flip. One of Sarah's loyal friends said, Hey, ghost girl, try not to vanish before class starts, with a sneer. His nickname for me, a jab at my fair skin and tendency to keep to myself, caused the lockers to resonate with laughter from the other children. I didn't dare look up as I accelerated. Just ignore him, I said to myself, but it didn't feel genuine. Today's first test was to survive homeroom. Unaware all the time, Mrs. Parker babbled on about the significance of attendance. Just as I settled into my back seat, Sarah entered with her gang wearing her newest fashionable outfit. It's nice of you to come, Nellie. As she passed my desk, Sarah threw her hair in a loud jest and said, We were afraid you got lost in your closet of hand-me-downs. A scream of laughter broke out. As I clenched my hands, I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. Just leave me alone, I said, more to my desk than to her. What was that, Nellie? Speak up. Sarah turned to me with a sly smile and said, We can't hear you. I shook my head, deciding to be quiet instead of fighting an unwinnable conflict. There was a brief pause of relief when the bell rang. Every class change seemed like a challenge since Sarah and her group were always ready to make their next snarky comment or insult. Lunch was no exception. I found a peaceful spot away from the chaos and violence of the restaurant, beneath an old oak tree. I was thinking about simply vanishing while I chewed on my lunch. Hey, why are you sitting all by yourself here? My seclusion was broken by a voice. Jake, a man from my English class, was there when I glanced up. Even if he wasn't Sarah's type, I was still cautious. I said, I just like the quiet, thinking he would get the message and stop bothering me. Unfazed, he shrugged and took a seat next to me. Suit yourself. Sarah's being a real piece of work, huh? I was taken aback by his bluntness. You could say that, I admitted, surprised by my own candor. Listen, Nellie, you can't let her get to you. She's all talk, Jake said, his tone earnest. I wanted to believe him, to find the strength to stand up to Sarah, but the words felt like a distant dream. Easier said than done, I mumbled, my gaze fixed on the grass below. The bell signaling the end of lunch snapped me out of my reverie. Gathering my things, I offered Jake a small smile. Thanks for, sitting with me. No problem. See you around, Nellie, he said, heading back to the building. The rest of the day passed in a blur. With each class, I counted down the minutes until I could escape back to the safety of my home. But the day wasn't without its lessons. Jake's unexpected kindness was a glimmer of hope, a reminder that not everyone was against me. School had become a nightmare for me, one I couldn't wake up from. Every day was a repeat of the last, dodging insults, hiding from Sarah and her gang, and trying unsuccessfully to blend into the background. It wasn't long before the stress of it all started to take a real toll on me. I found myself feeling physically sick, my old ailments flaring up with a vengeance, alongside new ones. Headaches, stomach aches, you name it. I was a mess inside and out. One evening, I was curled up on the sofa, a blanket wrapped around me, trying to shake off the latest in a long line of migraines when Grandma came over. She had this way of seeing right through you, and that day was no different. "Nellie, this isn't just about being sick, is it?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. I tried to shrug it off. "I'm fine, Grandma. Just tired." She wasn't having any of it. "Nonsense. You're sick, yes, but it's not just physical, is it? It's those kids at school, isn't it?" I hesitated, then the floodgates opened. I told her everything about Sarah, the bullying, the constant dread that filled my days. Grandma listened, her expression growing more concerned by the minute. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "Nellie, your body is reacting to your stress and anxiety. It's making you ill. All these problems with your classmates are affecting your health." I was stunned. Could my being bullied be the reason I was always sick? Seeing my confusion, Grandma explained further. Stress can have a real physical impact on your body. It's important we address not just the symptoms, but the cause as well. The next day, Grandma sat down with my parents and me to discuss a plan. It was clear that continuing to attend school wasn't an option, not if things stayed as they were. After much discussion, my parents decided to switch me to distance learning. It was a big change, but one that felt necessary. The difference was night and day. Away from the constant harassment and anxiety, I started to heal. My headaches became less frequent, my stomach settled, and I found myself actually able to concentrate on my studies without the looming shadow of Sarah and her taunts. I was sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon, working through a set of math problems, when Mom came in to make a cup of tea. She watched me for a moment, then said, "You seem different, Nellie. Better. Happier, even." I hadn't really thought about it, but she was right. "I guess I am," I admitted. "It's weird not having to worry about what's going to happen at school every day." Mom nodded, a relieved smile spreading across her face. "I'm just glad to see you feeling better. We should have done this sooner." The transition wasn't without its challenges. I missed the few friends I had, and adjusting to a new way of learning took time. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, I found myself grateful for the change. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe one morning as I logged on to my first virtual class. My mom knocked softly on my door. "Nellie, you okay with this? Missing your friends?" she asked, peeking in with a concerned look. I paused, considering. "Kind of," I admitted. "But it's better than before. At least I can focus now." She nodded, her eyes softening. "You just shout if you need anything. Okay, I'm right downstairs." As the days turned into weeks, I found a rhythm to my new routine. The subjects I used to struggle with began to make sense, thanks to the absence of distractions and the patient guidance of my online teachers. One afternoon, after a particularly successful math session, my dad came home early and found me at my desk. Look at you, asking your classes without those bullies breathing down your neck, he said with a grin, ruffling my hair. I couldn't help but smile back. Feels weird, Dad. Good weird, though, like I can actually do this. That's 'cause you can, Nellie. Always could, he replied, pride evident in his voice. Yet it wasn't all smooth sailing. The lack of social interaction began to weigh on me. I missed the face-to-face conversations, even the ones that weren't always kind. The silence of the house, once a sanctuary, started to feel more like a cage. I started to look for ways to fill the social void. I joined online study groups and even started a virtual book club with a few classmates I'd reconnected with. It wasn't the same as hanging out in person, but it helped. One evening, as I closed my laptop after a long study session, my grandma called. "How's my favorite granddaughter?" she asked, her voice warm and comforting. "I'm your only granddaughter, Grandma," I teased, smiling at our ongoing joke. "Details, details," she chuckled. "How's the distance learning going?" "It's good, actually. I mean, I miss seeing people, but I'm doing better in school now," I shared, feeling a sense of achievement. "That's my girl. You're stronger than you know, Nellie. Don't forget that," she said, her words lifting my spirits. Prom night was something I had dreaded for months. The very idea of attending filled me with anxiety. My parents, however, thought it would be good for me. A chance to close this chapter on a high note, as they put it. Despite my protests, I found myself nodding along to their encouragement. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, Nellie. You might regret not going," Mom said, her eyes hopeful. I couldn't bring myself to argue further, even though every fiber of my being screamed against it. So there I was, in a simple dress that my mom and I had picked out, standing awkwardly at the back of the gym, trying my best to blend in with the walls. The gym was transformed, barely recognizable with all the decorations and lights. Groups of my classmates, all dressed up, were laughing and dancing, enjoying the night. I couldn't help but feel like an outsider, watching the festivities from my lonely corner. As the evening dragged on, I decided to make a quiet exit. No one would notice I was gone anyway. But just as I was about to slip out, Sarah, in her stunning dress, blocked my path. "Leaving so soon, Nellie? The party's just starting," she sneered, her voice dripping with malice. I tried to step around her, but she shoved me back a little too forcefully. "Watch where you're going," she hissed, her eyes gleaming with cruelty. The sudden push caught me off guard, and I stumbled, drawing the attention of those nearby. In seconds, I was surrounded by Sarah's friends, their laughter piercing the loud music. "Look at her, can't barely stand straight," one of them mocked, pointing directly at me. Sarah leaned in closer, her voice loud enough for her circle to hear. "Guess some things never change, huh?" Nellie, always the clumsy one. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and something else. Anger, maybe, or just a deep aching sadness. "Just leave me alone, Sarah," I managed to say, my voice shaky but loud. "Oh, I will. Don't worry. Wouldn't want to ruin my night by spending another minute with you," she retorted, her words like daggers. The group's laughter followed me as I turned and ran, not stopping until I was safely outside, away from their taunting faces. Tears blurred my vision as I made my way home, the night air doing little to cool my flushed cheeks. My parents were waiting up when I got home, their faces lighting up at the sight of me. But as they took in my tear-streaked face and the defeated slump of my shoulders, their smiles faded. "What happened, honey?" Mom asked, rushing over to me. I shook my head, unable to find the words to explain the humiliation and hurt. "I just want to forget tonight ever happened," I whispered, the tears starting again as I let my parents wrap me in their arms. Their concern and love were a small comfort in the face of my pain. After the prom disaster, I was more than ready to put high school behind me. College was my chance to start fresh, to be someone new. I chose to study medicine, driven by a deep-seated desire to help others, maybe even understand a bit more about my own struggles through learning about the human body and mind. My first day at medical college felt like stepping onto another planet. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, talking about classes and future careers. I found myself outside the main lecture hall, clutching my schedule, when a girl next to me said, "Hey, you look lost too. First year." "Yeah," I replied, grateful for the conversation. "Nellie," I introduced myself. "I'm Zoe." Nervous? Terrified, I admitted with a laugh. Zoe and I stuck together, finding our way to the lecture hall. Sitting down, I felt a nervous excitement bubble up inside me. This was it, my chance to really make something of myself. As weeks turned into months, I started to come into my own. I was doing well in my classes, even making a few friends. Zoe and I became inseparable, studying together and encouraging each other through the tough exams and endless assignments. Our hard work paid off, and I found myself thriving in a way I never had before. The subject of psychosomatic medicine particularly fascinated me. The idea that the mind could have such a profound effect on the body. It resonated with my own experiences, and I delved into the research with a passion. One day, after presenting a paper I'd written on stress and its physical manifestations, my professor pulled me aside. "Nellie, your work is impressive. Have you considered specializing in this field?" I was taken aback. I hadn't really thought about it. He nodded thoughtfully. "Think about it. You have a knack for understanding the complexities of the human mind and body. It's a rare gift." His encouragement bolstered my confidence, and I began to see a clear path ahead of me. I was going to use my past, my struggles, and turn them into something positive. I was going to help people heal, not just physically, but emotionally too. As the years passed, I graduated from medical college with honors, my sights set on specializing in psychosomatic medicine. My family was proud, and I, for the first time in a long time, was proud of myself too. I had turned my life around, and I was ready to face whatever came next with a newfound strength and determination. Zoe hugged me tight on graduation day. "Look at us, we made it." "Yeah, we did," I said, smiling. "Here's to new beginnings." And as we threw our caps into the air, I felt a sense of closure. The hurt and isolation of my past were behind me. Ahead lay a future full of possibilities, a chance to make a real difference, and I was ready for it, more ready than I'd ever been. After pouring years into researching the profound effects of psycho-emotional stress on the body, my work started gaining traction. I'd written extensively on how the turmoil of our minds could physically manifest, leading to real, often severe health issues. Stress, anxiety, the grind of daily life. It all could lead to negative reactions within the body, spiraling into chronic conditions. What fascinated me most was finding ways to reverse or manage these effects by addressing the root mind state. This journey of mine caught the eyes and ears of the medical community. Invitations flooded in, asking me to share my findings with peers, specialists, and even skeptics. It wasn't long before my name became somewhat of a buzzword in medical circles, a symbol of a fresh perspective on holistic healing. My big break came when I was invited as a speaker at the annual health conference. The topic I chose, the mind-body connection, psycho-emotional stress, and physical health, struck a chord. As I spoke, I could see the realization dawn on many faces. This wasn't just theory, it was reality, affecting countless lives. I walked off that stage to a sea of applause, my heart racing, not from fear but exhilaration. I'd overcome my dread of public speaking, facing down an auditorium packed with professionals, and I'd held my own. The buzz from my presentation didn't just end with applause. Post-conference, an invitation came my way that would have seemed unimaginable years ago. A dinner with the who's who of the health sector. Government officials, insurance bigwigs, clinic heads, and industry specialists, all were to be there. As the day of the dinner approached, a mix of excitement and nerves took over. This was more than just a meal. It was a networking goldmine, a chance to discuss potential collaborations to take my work to the next level. I stood in front of my mirror, makeup in hand, determined to look my best. I wasn't just representing my research. I was representing myself, my journey. I chose my dress carefully, the one that always made me feel confident and at ease. As I applied my makeup, I allowed myself a moment to reflect on the significance of this evening. It wasn't about looking no worse than the other women there. It was about feeling my best, about walking into that restaurant with my head held high, knowing I belonged. At this elegant dinner, surrounded by the health sector's elite, I felt like I was finally where I belonged. Compliments flowed my way, each one boosting my confidence more than the last. As the evening wound down, I decided it was time to head home, still riding the high of the night's successes. But as I made my way through the hallway, a familiar voice stopped me in my tracks. It was her, Sarah, my high school nightmare. "Wow, look at you. Finally figured out how to dress, huh?" Sarah's voice, laced with that same condescending tone, filled the space between us. I turned to face her, finding her just as beautiful and just as arrogant as she'd been back in school. The years had changed us both, but it seemed her spirit remained untouched by time. "Long time no see, Sarah," I said calmly. Sarah laughed, a sound that once would have sent me spiraling into anxiety. "Seriously though, how much did you have to borrow to afford a can here? This place isn't cheap." I met her gaze, steady and calm. The fear and insecurity she once inspired in me had long since faded, replaced by a strength forged in overcoming and succeeding despite people like her. Before I could respond, the organizer of the dinner, Mr. Thompson, approached, his concern evident. He asked, "Is everything all right here?" After glancing at Sarah, I nodded and grinned at him. "Thank you so much." Merely getting back in touch with a former classmate. Driven by alcohol and unfettered pride, Sarah continued her tirade without realizing the misery she was causing. She even went so far as to engage her spouse in the conversation by requesting him to partake in her joke. But as soon as her husband found out about the situation, his attitude drastically altered. He was the director of a company that was interested in my research, and I recognized him. "I'm so sorry," he began, and I was taken aback by how really he apologized. "My wife's behavior is unacceptable." Then he turned to Sarah, his rage exploding. "Are you conscious of what you are doing? You are jeopardizing important opportunities with your conduct. I've been thrilled to collaborate with Dr. Nellie Stewart on this scenario, which you're developing." As her sobbing echoed across the hallway, it was surreal to watch him leading Sarah out. He returned alone a few seconds later, his expression penitent. "I can't tell you how sorry I am for my wife's behavior," he stated earnestly. "Hopefully, this won't affect our potential collaboration. Your work is invaluable." I saw my former school bully sitting outside on the steps, her makeup smeared from tears, as I was heading out after dinner. She looked up as I approached, her eyes red and puffy. "Hey, would you mind talking to him?" She hiccuped, her voice a combination of desperation and alcohol. "You seem to have his ear." I paused, looking down at her. This girl, who used to cause me a lot of trouble, is now asking for my help. The irony was not lost on me. "I'm not getting involved. I responded firmly. This is between you and him. But you're doing quite good. Stumbling over her words, she said, he listens to you. That doesn't make it my business, I remarked in a tone that prevented further discussion. I left her on the steps in her own squalor. As I headed home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. I had gone full circle from being bullied to becoming a woman who stood her ground without fear. Rumors about her divorce began to circulate. I would be lying if I claimed it didn't give me a sense of validation. Things were improving for me. I had found a fascinating and kind man who appreciated me for who I was. I never thought we'd be talking about a future together. I felt much more motivated to continue working. My experiences, both past and current, motivated me to want to change things. Even though the journey was unusual, it led me to this joyful and contented place, and I was appreciative of it.
Absolutely not. Why would a low-level employee like you use paid leave to come to a luxury hotel like this? Don't mess with me. Approval for paid leave. That was just to keep you guessing, obviously. I never imagined you'd actually take time off to come here. This was the day I took my mother to a luxury hotel as a Mother's Day present. My arrogant boss was waiting for me at the hotel, yelling and looking down on me with disdain. But he doesn't know my mother is not just any ordinary woman, and that his life was about to take a turn for the worse. My name is Kevin. I grew up in a single-parent household after my parents divorced when I was young. From a young age, I noticed how busy my mother was, working hard to provide for us. As a kid left in daycare, I was always the last one to be picked up. "Hey, Mr. Johnson, where's my mom?" "Not here yet. She'll be a bit later. Wanna play with blocks?" "I guess, but all my friends have gone home already." "Then let's build a big truck with the blocks together." Mr. Johnson at the daycare probably felt sorry for me waiting for my mom every evening. He always suggested fun activities to keep me entertained. Even in elementary school, life wasn't much different. Unlike daycare, which cared for me until 7:00 p.m., after-school programs only went until 6:00 p.m. and cost extra for extended hours. After 6:00 p.m., I would walk home alone on dark streets, watching other kids leave with their parents. Sometimes friends' parents worried about me and offered me a ride home, but it felt more miserable, and I hated them seeing my dark, empty house. So I would rush home alone. I never expressed my loneliness or frustration to my mother. Even as a child, I understood she was working hard. I had a vague sense of our financial struggles and debt, so I kept my feelings to myself, enduring the loneliness silently. As I got older, I turned to sports to distract myself from the loneliness. Sweating and focusing on sports helped me forget the unpleasantness. My childhood was a battle against this loneliness. Thanks to my mother's hard work, our living situation gradually improved. In high school, I was active in sports clubs and worked part-time on my days off. But it wasn't to earn living expenses. My mother's efforts meant it was just for pocket money. Like my friends, I was earning money just for fun. Around that time, I started thinking about my future education. One day, with parent-teacher meetings approaching, I brought it up to my mother. Private universities are a bit too much, but you can go to any public university department you like if you want to pursue higher education. Her response surprised me. "Really?" "Of course. You've been through a lot. I want to let you study as much as you want." "Thanks, Mom. I'll go to college. I'll study hard and get into a public university, so don't worry." "Sorry, Kevin. Thank you." I researched universities that were affordable and within commuting distance from home and studied relentlessly. Balancing work and study was tough, but my mock exam results were promising. If you keep up these grades, you're likely to get in, my teacher assured me at the parent-teacher-student conference. Encouraged by this, I confidently took my university entrance exams and succeeded, getting into a public university. As a college student, I increased my working hours, but never slacked off in my studies. It was a university I had worked hard to get into. I didn't want to waste that opportunity. I packed my 4 years with lectures, earning more credits than necessary. I also actively participated in club activities, making for a fulfilling 4 years. After graduation, I got a job in the textile industry. Textile work requires a delicate sensibility, but also the physical strength to handle heavy fabric rolls. Thanks to my sports background, I was pretty confident about my physical abilities. As for the delicate sensibility, that's something I'm still looking to polish. Sensibility is honed on the job. Don't worry, Michael from the sales department told me. His words made me realize that although promotion is great, I wanted to work in the field as long as possible. Once you climb the corporate ladder, you end up doing more paperwork and attending more meetings than actual field work. I shared this view with my peers. You're quite the unique one, they said. I wondered if most people prefer to climb the career ladder quickly and work comfortably in an office. It seemed I was a rare type. Under Michael's guidance, I worked hard, often meeting demanding requests from clients. Saying I dedicated most of my 20s to work wouldn't be an exaggeration. My life revolved around the company, awake or asleep. Then, one day, everything changed. Cancer? I hesitated to tell you, but being honest is better than causing unnecessary speculation. This is terrible, but it's early, so it's not an immediate threat. Michael had gathered us before work to disclose his cancer diagnosis. Discovered early, there was a chance of recovery and return, but at 55, he decided to take early retirement. I'm sorry to spring this on you so suddenly. I'll ensure a smooth transition and won't burden you further, he said. But are you really okay? Will you recover? There's no guarantee in medicine, but the chances are good with early detection. I won't be gone just yet. Make sure to visit me sometimes. Michael was overwhelmed. I couldn't help but cry, and Michael gently patted my back. Due to his illness, he quickly transitioned his responsibilities and left the workplace a few days later. His successor as department head was David. Hey, starting today, I'm the head of this department. I expect respect, everyone's cooperation with me in charge. Lax work won't be tolerated. Be prepared to work hard. His greeting conveyed a sense of unease, causing frowns among us. But David seemed oblivious. He was someone none of us expected to get promoted to a management position. To put it bluntly, he wasn't exactly known for his competence. But with Michael's sudden retirement, David, by virtue of seniority, unexpectedly landed the role. He disliked being told what to do, often begrudgingly agreeing to Michael's instructions. He was also known for lashing out at objects and yelling at juniors, not the kind of person you hear good things about. Until now, Michael had kept him in check, preventing any major issues. But now, with Michael gone and David promoted, there was virtually no one to stop him. Moreover, it seemed David didn't quite grasp that it's already the modern era. I'm heading out now. I was finishing up my day's work, ready to leave at the regular time. Hey, Kevin, it's still regular hours. Why are you leaving? David asked, genuinely puzzled. Well, it is the end of my shift, and I've finished today's work, so I'm heading home. What are you talking about? Just because you finished today's work doesn't mean you can just leave. There's always more to do. And you guys too, don't just talk about today's work. Keep looking ahead and keep working. That way, we can secure more contracts, which is only good for the company. Stay late as much as possible. Those who leave on time are incompetent. Work harder. David announced this proudly in front of everyone, leaving us all dumbstruck. Then, when a junior employee tried to take annual leave, "Hey, I heard you applied for an annual leave." "Ah, yes." "What are you thinking?" He confronted him sharply. "Well, everyone else is working hard. You think you can just take an annual leave? Don't mess around. If you have time to spare, work." "No, that day is for a family memorial service." "I've taken annual leaves before, and it was never an issue, so what?" "I'm the boss now. Forget everything that happened before. From now on, taking annual leave is not allowed." His excessively tyrannical behavior left everyone in the department bewildered. There was even this incident. Who arrives at the last minute like that? As a punishment, come an hour early tomorrow and clean the office. He dished out such senseless penalties. In another instance, "We've met this month's target, but it's still not enough. Tomorrow is Saturday, but I'm calling a meeting, so everyone shows up at the usual time." He also ordered us to come in on a day off for a mysterious meeting. Each time, we all voiced our concerns, but David didn't care. It seemed he had been frustrated for a long time, unable to secure a higher position, and now, as a manager, he was taking out his frustrations on us. "Hey, Kevin, how's it going?" he said one day. "Good evening." "Well, as usual." "That's good. But you know, at your age, still being just a regular employee, isn't that a bit incompetent? Bottom of the barrel at your age. It's pretty clear what your future holds, right? It's only a matter of time before the newbies surpass you. Well, anyway, try not to let the newbies overtake you. And of course, I'm counting on you for overtime tonight." David patted my shoulder and walked away, leaving me with nothing but a sigh. A few months passed since David took over. Mother's Day is coming up soon, and I thought I'd splurge on a gift. "That's right. It'll be your first Mother's Day since you started working, Jess. So I was thinking maybe a short trip nearby, perhaps an overnight stay." "That sounds wonderful. Your mom will be thrilled." "But then, I have to do the same for Father's Day, right? I'm thinking about where to go. They both love hot springs, so maybe somewhere with hot springs." Hearing two female colleagues discuss this, I glanced at the calendar. Right, Mother's Day is coming up. Every year, I take my mom out for dinner, but maybe this year, I'll splurge on a luxury hotel for an overnight trip. That's what I was thinking. And as they say, strike while the iron is hot. Figuring that reservations for Mother's Day would fill up quickly, I quickly searched on my cell phone while having lunch. I made the reservation early. Then I returned to the office and immediately applied for a day off. Until the day of the trip, things were relatively calm. I was sure I'd be reprimanded for taking a day off. I was even prepared to be scolded in front of everyone. But surprisingly, nothing was said. In fact, my application was approved the next day, which left me astonished. "Kevin, you seem to be in good spirits lately. Something good will happen." "I don't think so, just the usual." "Well, that's good. Keep up the good work, as always." David was in too good of a mood, almost frighteningly so. "Well, as long as things continue peacefully, that's all that matters." But I couldn't shake the feeling of calm before a storm. Then came the day of the trip. In the morning, my mom and I enjoyed sightseeing around the hotel. "Well, can we really stay in a place like this?" "Yeah. I'll go check in now. Just wait here, thank you." While my mom excitedly explored the luxurious hotel, I went to the front desk to check in. but I stopped in my tracks when I saw someone who shouldn't be there. Ah, David. Kevin, why are you here? David, what do you mean, why am I here? Why is a low-level employee like you using annual leave to come to a luxury hotel like this? Don't mess around. David grabbed me by the collar, began yelling. I was shocked and confused. But you approved my annual leave request, didn't you? I complained about that. Indeed, David had approved my annual leave for today. Why am I being yelled at now? And in a place like this? That was just to lead you on. I never thought you'd actually take the day off and come here. Lead me on. I don't understand what you mean. Are you kidding me? Ha! I'd like to see the face of a parent who raised such an incompetent person, who can't even understand their own position. What, the face of your parent? I want to see the face of the parent who raised such an incompetent person. David seemed to relish in saying such things. First of all, you don't even do unpaid overtime, and you seem to have no ambition for promotion, staying a regular employee forever. What's wrong with you? Don't you want to get promoted? If you work overtime every day, show some determination and grit. Otherwise, the higher-ups won't value you. Well, you might not understand what I'm saying, being incompetent and all. Sorry for speaking about complex things. He kept ranting whatever he wanted. Feeling the painful stares of those around me, I knew I had to do something about this situation. Hearing the commotion, my mother walked over, realizing something. I turned back to face David. David, what are you saying? Here is my mother. Saying that, I stepped aside to let my mother forward, causing David to freeze in shock. What? Why are you here? Well, hello. I suppose this is our first meeting outside the office, isn't it? Why? What does this mean? Oh, you know who I am. I assumed I was quite unknown within the company, as we rarely meet. No way, not knowing our chairman's face. That's impossible. Well, I'm flattered. Yes, my mother is chairman of our company. Apparently, David knew of her but was unaware of our family relationship. David was completely intimidated in the presence of my mother. So, David, I've heard everything. My son seems to be under your care. However, your assertions are exactly as my son described. Oh, well, that annual leave is legitimate, right of employees. You have no business to reprimand for that. And what about this unpaid overtime? Overtime for promotion? Which era are you living in? Listen, work isn't about blindly putting in hours. It's most important to do it efficiently. Without proper balance, you can't perform well as a professional. I assumed you understood that, but maybe I was wrong. My mother, with a fixed smile, at David completely cowed. Well, that's enough. I'm not here for work, but for leisure. I don't have the time to spare on you. Chairman, do you have something more for us? Any other business? Yikes, no, nothing good. I'll inform you of your consequences later. Be prepared for that, Kevin. Let's go. Yes, I said. Seeing my mother so livid after a long time, I couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Careful not to aggravate her further, I thought. I responded and walked past David, glancing at his face as we passed. I saw a man utterly crushed by despair. After that, my mother and I enjoyed our trip immensely and returned home very satisfied. The day after next, when I went back to work, David's seat was no longer in the sales department. It seemed that my mother had called HR from our trip. David's unreasonable treatment of his subordinates came to delight HR. They had already deemed him unfit for the managerial role, considering him just a stopgap until a more suitable person was hired. Of course, had he performed well, He could have kept his position, but his conduct had sealed his fate. It seemed that David had mistakenly believed he earned his position through his own merit when, in reality, it was more of a fluke. This misperception led to his tyrannical behavior, resulting in an immediate transfer. He was transferred to the logistics department, a place so hot it makes you sweat like a waterfall, where physical strength is essential. The nature of the work there meant it was mostly populated by young, physically strong men, making it a somewhat sweaty environment. David to that logistics department. I doubt he'll be able to keep up. He's probably aiming for voluntary resignation. Well, considering what he's done, it's a fitting consequence. Anyway, with him gone, we can work more efficiently again, which is a relief. Yes, no more unnecessary overtime or working on holidays. It seems we're heading back to a peaceful work environment. Everyone gossiped, but no one truly seemed worried about David. He was probably feeling marginalized now, sweating profusely in the logistics department. I didn't feel a shred of sympathy for him. In the sales department, the position of the next department head was left vacant for a while, and the manager, Steve, temporarily took on the role. We made a mistake with an interim personal decision, thinking it was just for a short while. I apologize for the great inconvenience caused to everyone. The HR department, seemingly reflecting on their actions, came all the way to the sales department to leave words of apology. It seems my mother, though retired as the active chairman, reconsidered the need to keep an eye on the company's internal affairs. The current president, who had been my mother's competent right hand for years, also received a word from her and sent an apology. In the sales department, we were just glad to have our peaceful work environment back and felt almost embarrassed to be apologized to by various parties. Soon after his transfer to logistics, David left the company. It's unclear whether the transfer was a move to encourage his resignation, but working under younger employees must have been unbearable for him, and physically it must have been quite demanding. He was really put through the ringer, someone commented. It's ironic for someone who hated taking orders. He couldn't have lasted long. Such rumours faded within a week. Later, I was summoned by my mother to the reception room. Kevin, sorry for the sudden call. It's fine, but what's up? Something else happened. No, it's different. I was hoping you'd be ready to accept a promotion soon. A promotion? Yes, I'm very grateful you joined our company. I know you've continued to work in the field based on Michael's advice, and you have your own goals and pride in your current job. I think I understand all that. Then why suddenly? It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's not just me. The president and the HR department agree. Really, that was surprising to hear, Kevin. Since you joined the company, we haven't had a proper discussion. So, let me say this now. I hope, if possible, you can work towards becoming the next president of the company. That is certainly. Since I joined the company you founded, I've thought about it eventually, but I still have so much to learn, and I still want to be out in the field. I understand, but our company's work isn't just about being in the field. Certainly, there are things you can't understand and experience unless you're on site. However, there are also things you can only understand and learn by being in a leadership position, directing others. I understood what my mom was saying. I felt the same way when I first joined the company. I was fully intent on eventually taking over as president. However, after working in the textile industry for 10 years, I grew increasingly anxious about whether I could handle such a big responsibility. I told my mom, please let me think about it. I called Michael on the weekend. He had successfully undergone surgery and was now enjoying a peaceful retirement. I haven't been in touch for a while. I said. It's been a long time. I discussed the recent events and my mum's proposal with Michael. Honestly, I'm more anxious than confident right now. I worry that standing at the top in this state of mind will only make everyone else uneasy, I confessed. Then Michael quietly said, "Do you have time now? It's your day off, right?" "Yes," I replied. "Then bring me the highest quality fabric sample you're handling right now," he instructed me. I quickly grabbed what I believed to be the best fabric sample I was handling and went to Michael's house. After showing him the sample, Michael commented, "You've really come to understand, haven't you?" He smiled kindly. "It's proof that you've built up solid experience in the field. You should be fine." His words resonated deeply with me. I felt acknowledged for the first time and was moved. "Thank you, I really appreciate it," I said. And that feeling gradually turned into confidence. Encouraged by Michael, I decided to accept my mother's wishes. I was anxious about what others would think of my promotion, being inexperienced in many areas. But when I was actually promoted to manager, everyone seemed happier than I was. "Kevin, congratulations. It's as if it's my own promotion. I'm so happy. Finally, I was wondering why you hadn't been given a position until now. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you. I may cause some inconvenience by being inexperienced and only knowing the field." "Not at all. We all know how much you've contributed to the company. Don't worry, we'll support you in whatever way we can." "Thank you, really, thank you." The sound of applause was heartwarming. With my promotion to manager, Steve was promoted to department head. As a sales department, we had a foundation to move forward unitedly. Once again after my promotion, I became more proactive in training and guiding within the department. Even though juniors had asked for my guidance before, I was mostly out in the field, so I wasn't often in the office, especially the new female employee who had wanted to ask me many things, benefited from my new focus on sharing knowledge and sales expertise. Perhaps as a result, the company's performance improved. Jess, is there something you still don't understand?" "No, it's not that." Kevin, do you have a girlfriend?" "Oh, what?" The new female employee asked such a personal question. Looks like spring has finally come for Kevin. Others teased me. I spent several years living through such days. I was promoted to department head, recognized for my achievement as a manager. At first, I was filled with anxiety about my new role, but now I am fully resolved to take over as president when the time comes. This is all thanks to my mother, who showed me the value of hard work from a young age, Michael, whom I respect, and everyone at the company who has supported me. Their encouragement has built my confidence and contributed to the company's growth. Kevin, President Wilson, good to see you. Likewise. How are you finding the department head role? Well, I'm still feeling quite inexperienced. Haha, you're really humble. Quite different from your mother. I occasionally join in for drinks, savoring these moments. He has worked under my mother for a long time. I want to learn as much as I can from him now, about his vision for the company and his approach to leadership. I don't want to rely on my mother's influence. I want to earn recognition for my own abilities. To do this, I'm willing to work hard, even if it means getting my hands dirty. Perhaps sensing my intentions, President Wilson shares various experiences with me. You look much more mature now. Maybe it's just a parent's pride, but you really seem dependable, she says. Hearing her say that, I can't help but feel it's true. Until now, I've been focused solely on fieldwork and my own responsibilities. That was what was required and expected of me. But as my responsibilities have grown, so has my perspective. It's a natural progression, and I need to adapt. Of course, there are things I need to oversee from a higher level, but sometimes it's important to return to the field perspective, ensuring the well-being of the employees and the appropriateness of personnel management. It's precisely because I've always been in the field that I can think this way. My time in the field has broadened my horizons. Still, I remain inexperienced. Just appointed as a manager, I find the thought of aspiring to be president presumptuous. But for everyone who believes in me, who follows me, I want to quickly grow into a role I can be confident in. I aspire to take on that position as soon as possible with confidence in my abilities. There's still much to learn from my mother, Michael, President Wilson, and everyone else. I'll keep my feet on the ground and strive to be a president that would not be an embarrassment. That's my resolve.
Just because we're family doesn't mean I'll let you ruin us, I whispered defeatedly into the dark as I recounted the money in my drawer. The dim glow of the bedside lamp cast eerie shadows across the room, but it was enough light to confirm my fears. There was a significant sum missing from my personal savings. My hands trembled as I sorted through the bills, the stark realization sinking in that this wasn't the first time. Over the past few months, I had noticed a gradual depletion, but I had brushed it off, convincing myself I must have miscounted or spent more than I thought. Now the evidence was undeniable. A creak in the hallway made me jump, and I hastily stuffed the money back into the drawer, my heart pounding in my ears. Evan shuffled into the room, his eyes heavy with fatigue and worry etched deep into the lines of his face. "You're still up?" he mumbled, sinking onto the edge of the bed. I swallowed hard, forcing a tight smile. Just couldn't sleep. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but I couldn't bring myself to confront him. Not yet. Evan nodded absently, his mind clearly elsewhere. This was becoming increasingly common. The distant gaze, the preoccupied demeanor, the late nights out with flimsy excuses. Something was deeply wrong, and the missing money only added to my growing sense of dread. As he drifted off to sleep beside me, I lay awake, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Was Evan the one taking my money? If so, why? And how could I protect our family from whatever troubles he might be facing? The weight of the secrets hanging between us felt suffocating, and I knew I couldn't let this fester any longer. Tomorrow, I decided I would find a way to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Just because we're family doesn't mean I'll let him ruin us. The next morning, my hands shook as I placed the hidden camera in the living room, angling it discreetly towards the hallway leading to our bedroom. A pit of dread formed in my stomach, but I knew I had to catch Evan in the act. I couldn't let this torment of uncertainty continue. Later that day, as Evan left for his meeting, I hurried to check the footage. My heart sank as I watched him sneak into our bedroom and rummage through my drawer, stuffing handfuls of cash into his pockets. The betrayal felt like a physical blow, and I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. When Evan returned a few hours later, I was waiting for him in the living room, the damning video queued up on the laptop. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained emotion. Evan paled as he took in the scene before him, his eyes darting between me and the computer screen. "Mara, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped, hitting play on the video. We watched in silence as the footage played out, the sickening reality of his theft unfolding before our eyes. When it ended, Evan slumped into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry," he mumbled, his words muffled by his palms. "I have a gambling problem. I owe people money, a lot of money." The confession hung heavy in the air, and a wave of nausea washed over me. All this time, while I had been working tirelessly to support our family, he had been squandering our hard-earned savings on his addiction. "How could you do this to us?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. "To Lila? To your own mother?" Evan flinched at the mention of our daughter and his mother, who lived with us. "I never meant for it to go this far," he pleaded. "I thought I could win it back, pay off my debts." "You lied to me," I spat, disgust curling in my gut. "You looked me in the eye and lied, day after day." Evan nodded miserably, unable to meet my gaze. In that moment I saw him for what he truly was, a man consumed by his vices, willing to sacrifice everything for the thrill of the gamble. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I had to do next. "You need help, professional help," I stated firmly, "and until you get it, you're not going anywhere near our finances again." Evan's head snapped up, his eyes wide with panic. "But Mara, please, I'll get it under control, I swear." I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. "I can't trust you anymore, Evan. Not after this." I gestured to the laptop, the evidence of his deception laid bare. As I watched him crumble before me, a part of me ached for the man I had once loved. But the greater part, the part that longed to protect our family, our future, hardened with determination. I would do whatever it took to shield us from the wreckage of his addiction, even if it meant tearing our lives apart to rebuild them anew. In the days that followed, Evan seemed to be making an effort. He started attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and agreed to hand over control of our finances to me. I kept a close eye on our bank statements, desperate to believe that he was finally on the path to recovery. But deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was still off. Little things kept catching my eye. The way Evan would tense up whenever I mentioned money, the furtive glances he would cast around the room as if afraid someone was watching. One evening, as I was going through our mail, a letter from the bank caught my attention. It was a statement for a credit card account I didn't recognize. Frowning, I tore it open, my heart sinking as I scanned the charges, thousands of dollars in cash advances and gambling-related expenses. I confronted Evan as soon as he walked through the door, thrusting the statement in his face. "Care to explain this?" He blanched, stumbling back a step. "Mara, I can explain." "Save it," I spat, fury bubbling up inside me. "You promised you were getting help. You said you were done with this addiction." Evan ran a shaky hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the room. "I am getting help, I swear. It's just harder than I thought." "Harder?" I echoed incredulously. "You've been lying to me this whole time, stealing from us again." Evan opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off, too angry to listen to his excuses. "How can I ever trust you again? You've betrayed us, betrayed our family." As the words left my lips, I saw Eleanor hovering in the doorway, her face etched with concern. "What's going on?" she asked cautiously. I turned to her, the statement crumpled in my fist. "Your son has been gambling again, racking up debt behind our backs." Eleanor's gaze shifted to Evan, a flicker of something like recognition passing over her features. "I knew it," she murmured, shaking her head sadly. "I saw the signs back when he was a kid. The lies, the sneaking around. It all makes sense now." Evan flinched as if she had struck him, his face flushing with shame. "You mean you suspected something like this before?" I demanded, whirling back to face Eleanor. She nodded solemnly. "I caught him stealing from me a few times when he was a teenager. Small amounts, but it set off alarm bells. I tried to confront him about it, but he always denied everything." Evan dropped his gaze to the floor, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As the weight of Eleanor's revelation settled over us, I felt a surge of determination rise within me. If this was a pattern, a cycle that had been going on for years, then I knew what I had to do. "Enough is enough," I declared, my voice steely with resolve. "We're not going to enable this anymore, Evan. You need to get serious help, or—" I trailed off, letting the unspoken threat hang in the air. Evan lifted his head, his eyes haunted with the realization that this time there might be consequences he couldn't gamble his way out of. After the confrontation with Evan and the revelations from Eleanor, I felt like I was living in a waking nightmare. The man I had vowed to love and cherish had been lying to me, stealing from our family to feed his insatiable addiction. In the days that followed, I kept a close eye on our finances, determined to uncover the full extent of Evan's deception. As I pored over bank statements and credit card bills, a sickening pattern began to emerge. Cash advances, wire transfers, even loans taken out against our home without my knowledge. My hands trembled as I printed out the damning evidence, the numbers swimming before my eyes. How could he have done this to us? How could he have risked everything we had worked so hard for? When Evan returned home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room, the stack of papers laid out on the coffee table, like a twisted monument to his betrayal. "Care to explain this?" I asked, my voice deathly calm. Evan froze in the doorway, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. Mara, He trailed off, his gaze dropping to the floor. You what, Evan? I prodded, anger simmering beneath the surface. You thought you could keep lying to me? Keep stealing from our family? He flinched but remained silent, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Do you have any idea what you've done? I demanded, gesturing to the documents. You've taken out loans against our home, put us in debt up to our eyeballs. All for what? Another roll of the dice. Evan lifted his head, his eyes pleading. I wanted to protect us from bankruptcy, he mumbled, his words ringing hollow. I let out a mirthless laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. Protect us? By gambling away our future, our security? How can you possibly justify this? Evan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He knew there was no justification, no excuse that could undo the damage he had caused. You've betrayed us, Evan, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You've betrayed our family, our trust. How can I ever believe a word you say again? He hung his head, shame etched into every line of his face. In that moment, I saw him for what he truly was. A man consumed by his vices, willing to sacrifice everything for the thrill of the gamble. As I stared at the crumpled figure before me, I knew that things could never be the same between us. The man I had loved was lost, perhaps forever, to the grip of his addiction. But even as my heart shattered, a steely resolve took root within me. I would not let his selfish actions destroy our family. I would fight with every fiber of my being to protect what was left, our daughter, our home, our future. And if Evan couldn't find the strength to conquer his demons, then I would have no choice but to cut him loose, once and for all. In the weeks that followed my discovery of Evan's deception, a palpable tension settled over our household. Evan had promised to seek professional help and attend regular Gamblers Anonymous meetings, but I found it increasingly difficult to trust his words. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Eleanor approached me in the kitchen, her expression grave. Mara, we need to talk, she said, her voice low. A knot of dread formed in the pit of my stomach as I set down the knife I had been using to chop vegetables. What is it? Eleanor glanced over her shoulder, as if afraid of being overheard. It's about Evan, she continued. I saw him yesterday at the casino downtown. The air seemed to leave my lungs in a rush, and I gripped the edge of the counter for support. You're sure? I managed to choke out. Eleanor nodded solemnly. I was running errands in that area and spotted him through the window. He was sitting at a poker table, playing like he didn't have a care in the world. White-hot fury surged through me, mingling with a sickening sense of betrayal. After everything he had put us through, after all his promises to get help, he was still gambling, still lying to our faces. That lying son of a... I began, but Eleanor held up a hand, cutting me off. I know, believe me, I know, she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disappointment. But we can't let him continue down this path. Not anymore. I took a deep, shuddering breath, willing myself to remain calm. What do you suggest? Eleanor's expression hardened, a steely determination settling over her features. We need to take action, she stated, for Lila's sake, if nothing else. My heart clenched at the mention of our daughter, who remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil her father's addiction had caused. I couldn't bear the thought of her finding out the truth, of her world being shattered by Evan's selfish choices. You're right, I agreed, my voice steady despite the maelstrom of emotions raging within me. We can't let him drag us down any further. Together, Eleanor and I began to formulate a plan, a way to confront Evan with the evidence of his deceit and force him to face the consequences of his actions. As we discussed our options, a sense of grim resolve settled over me. Evan had made his choices, time and time again, choosing his addiction over his family. Now, it was our turn to choose, to fight for our future, even if it meant cutting him loose once and for all. As I looked at Eleanor, her eyes burning with a protective fierceness, I knew we were united in our determination. We would do whatever it took to protect our family, to secure our financial stability, and to ensure that Lila's future wasn't gambled away by her father's vices. Evan had betrayed us for the last time. Now he would face the consequences of his actions, no matter how painful they might be. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than I had anticipated. Eleanor and I had gathered irrefutable evidence of Evan's continued gambling, photographs of him at the casino, bank statements showing unexplained cash withdrawals, even receipts from seedy establishments known for hosting underground poker games. As Evan strode through the front door that evening, whistling a cheerful tune, I felt a surge of white-hot anger coursing through my veins. How dare he act so carefree, so oblivious to the turmoil he had inflicted upon our family? "Evan, we need to talk," I stated, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. He froze, his brow furrowing as he registered the steely expressions on Eleanor's and my faces. "What's going on?" he asked, a note of trepidation creeping into his tone. Without a word, I strode over to the coffee table and snatched up the stack of evidence, thrusting it towards him. "Care to explain this?" Evan's eyes widened as he took in the damning photographs and documents, his face draining of color. "Mara, I can explain," he stammered, but the words rang hollow, even to my own ears. "Save it," I spat, my patience utterly depleted. "We know you've been lying to us, Evan. We know you've been gambling again, squandering our hard-earned money on your addiction." Evan flinched as if I had struck him, his gaze darting between Eleanor and me, panic etched into every line of his face. "How could you do this to us?" I demanded, tears of rage and betrayal stinging my eyes. "To Lila? After everything we've been through, after all your promises to get help?" Evan opened his mouth, but no words came out. For once it seemed his silver tongue had failed him. "You've put us in debt, Evan," Eleanor chimed in, her voice laced with disappointment. "You've risked our home, our financial security, all for the thrill of the gamble." Evan shook his head vehemently, his eyes pleading. No, you don't understand. I had it under control. I was going to win it all back." A bitter laugh escaped my lips, disbelief mingling with disgust. "Win it back? Evan, wake up! You've been spiraling deeper and deeper into this addiction, lying to us every step of the way." He flinched again, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "How could you gamble with our daughter's future like this?" I pressed on, my voice thick with emotion. "How could you put your own selfish desires above the well-being of our family?" Tears spilled down Evan's cheeks, but I felt no pity, only a bone-deep weariness. I was tired of the lies, the excuses, the broken promises. "We've given you chance after chance, Evan," Eleanor said, her tone gentler than mine but no less resolute. "But you've squandered every opportunity, every second chance we've offered." Evan shook his head weakly, but we both knew the truth. He had dug himself into a hole so deep, there was no easy way out. As I stared at the crumpled, broken figure before me, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. This was the moment, the pivotal point, where everything had to change. "It's time to face the consequences of your actions, Evan," I stated, my voice steadier than I had expected. "No more lies, no more excuses. This ends now." He lifted his head, his eyes swimming with desperation, but I had already made my decision. I would no longer enable his self-destructive behavior, no matter how much it hurt. This was the only way to save our family, and if Evan couldn't see that, then he would have to learn the hard way. The weight of our confrontation hung heavy in the air, the silence thick and suffocating. Evan stood before us, shoulders slumped, his eyes red-rimmed and pleading. "Please," he croaked, his voice cracking with emotion. "Give me one more chance. I swear, I'll get help. I'll turn things around." I felt a flicker of pity stir within me, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of his lies, his betrayal. How many times had we heard those same empty promises before? "Your chances ran out a long time ago, Evan," I stated, my voice hard and unyielding. "We've given you more opportunities than you deserved, and you squandered every single one." Evan flinched as if I had struck him, his gaze dropping to the floor in shame. "This has to stop, son," Eleanor chimed in, her tone tinged with sadness. "We can't keep enabling your addiction, not when it's destroying our family." "But I need help," Evan pleaded, desperation lacing his words. "I can't do this alone." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "You should have thought of that before you gambled away our savings, our trust, our future." Evan opened his mouth, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Enough," I said firmly. "We're done with the lies, the excuses. It's time to face the consequences of your actions." Fear flickered in Evan's eyes, and he took a step back as if recoiling from a physical blow. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice little more than a whisper. I steeled myself, drawing in a deep breath. "You have two choices, Evan. Either you get professional help, real help, and relinquish all control over our finances, or..." I let the unspoken threat hang in the air, letting the weight of it sink in. Evan's eyes widened, darting between Eleanor and me. Or what? Or we expose you, Eleanor stated bluntly. We take everything we know, the evidence, the documents, the pictures, and we make sure everyone knows the truth about your addiction. A strangled sound escaped Evan's throat, a mixture of fear and disbelief. Your job, your reputation, your relationships, they'll all be at risk, I continued, my voice unwavering, not to mention the legal consequences of the loans and debts you've racked up. Evan shook his head vehemently, his face pale. You can't. You wouldn't. Try us, I challenged, my gaze steely. We're done watching you gamble away our future, Evan. It's time to take back control. A heavy silence fell over the room, the weight of my ultimatum pressing down on us all. Evan's eyes darted between Eleanor and me, searching for a glimmer of mercy, a flicker of hesitation. But there was none to be found. We had both reached our breaking point, our love and loyalty stretched to the limit by his selfish actions. This is your last chance, Evan, I said, my voice softer but no less resolute. Choose wisely. Evan swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing in his throat. For a long, agonizing moment, he remained silent, the gravity of his decision hanging in the balance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he gave a slow, defeated nod. Okay, he whispered, his voice cracking. I'll do it. I'll get help. As the words left his lips, I felt a surge of relief mixed with trepidation. This was the first step, the first glimmer of hope that we might be able to salvage what was left of our family. But deep down, I knew the road ahead would be long and treacherous, paved with temptation and the ever-present threat of relapse. Evan's addiction had taken root deep within him, and it would take every ounce of strength and determination we possessed to uproot it. Yet as I looked at Eleanor, her eyes shining with a mixture of sadness and resolve, I knew we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together as a family, no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed Evan's agreement to seek help, a fragile sense of hope began to take root within me. He enrolled in an intensive outpatient program and attended regular Gamblers Anonymous meetings, his demeanor subdued and contrite. Yet, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the lingering doubts that gnawed at the back of my mind. Evan's addiction had taken such a firm hold, consuming him so completely. Could he truly break free from its clutches? My suspicions were confirmed one fateful evening when I received a call from an unknown number. Frowning, I answered, only to be met with the gruff voice of a man I didn't recognize. "Is this Mara Lewis?" he asked, his tone laced with barely concealed hostility. "Yes, who is this?" I replied, my heart rate quickening with a sense of foreboding. "This is Tony Russo," the man stated, his words clipped and accusatory. "I own the poker room down on Maple Street." My blood ran cold as realization dawned. This was one of the seedy establishments where Evan had been known to frequent, feeding his addiction with high-stakes games. "I don't know what kind of game your husband is playing," Tony continued, his voice lowering to a threatening growl, "but he better pay up and fast." A wave of nausea washed over me as the implications of his words sank in. Evan had been gambling again, racking up debts with dangerous individuals. "How much does he owe you?" I managed to choke out, my throat constricting with a potent mixture of fear and anger. Tony rattled off a staggering figure, one that made my head spin with its sheer enormity. "Look, lady," he snarled, "I don't care how you get the money, just make sure your husband settles his tab. Otherwise, there might be consequences neither of you want to face." The line went dead, leaving me trembling in the suffocating silence of our living room. Betrayal and disappointment surged through me, bitter and all-consuming. How could Evan have done this after everything we had been through? After all his promises, his vows to change? As the minutes ticked by, the anger within me solidified into a steely resolve. I could no longer stand idly by, enabling Evan's self-destructive behavior. It was time to take drastic action, no matter how painful it might be. When Evan finally stumbled through the door hours later, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes disheveled, I was waiting for him, the damning evidence in hand. "Care to explain this?" I demanded, thrusting Tony's number and the record of his debts into Evan's trembling hands. His face drained of color, and he opened his mouth, but I cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Save it," I spat, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. I'm done with your lies, your excuses. You've betrayed us for the last time, Evan. Evan shook his head vehemently, his eyes pleading. Mara, please, I can fix this. Just give me another chance. But his words fell on deaf ears. I had heard that same refrain too many times before, each promise hollower than the last. You had your chance, I stated, my voice steely and unwavering, and you blew it just like you've blown every other opportunity we've given you. Evan crumpled before me, his shoulders shaking with sobs, but I felt no pity, only a bone-deep wariness and a grim determination to protect what was left of our family. Pack your things, I ordered, my heart hardening against his pleas. You're leaving tonight. As the weight of my words settled over him, Evan lifted his head, his eyes shining with unshed tears and a dawning realization. This time there would be no second chances, no mercy. He had gambled away his last shot at redemption, and now he would have to face the consequences of his actions, alone.